everyone. We're super excited to talk to you today about what great win-loss programs do well. My name is Riley Thacker. I'm the Director of Operations here at Clozd, and basically I help make sure that we can deliver our programs for our clients. So everything from participation rate optimization, A/B testing email sequences, and basically everything and all the processes that go into making sure that we're able to schedule and publish interviews for our clients in the Clozd platform.
And I'm Sam Woodbury. I'm our head of product strategy. I work really closely with our product and engineering teams to plan out our roadmap and build all of the tools needed to run great win-loss programs. Like Riley mentioned, we're excited to talk to you guys today about best practices for running great win-loss programs. And specifically, we want to dive into what we've done here at Clozd to collect feedback directly from our own customers and what we've done to optimize that process. And I think there's 3 areas that we want to cover today. There's first, how do you schedule interviews with your clients and automate your program? Second, there's actually collecting in-depth feedback from those customers once you've scheduled the interviews and making sure you generate meaningful insights from that feedback. And third is sharing those insights out to your organization and driving cross-functional feedback. So to begin, Riley, would love to hear what great win-loss programs do to schedule interviews with as many of their customers as possible.
Yeah, I'd be happy to start with that. I think there's a few things that go into that. And one of the really foundational things that you need to make sure that you have nailed before you get too ahead of yourself is getting and securing cross-functional buy-in across your organization. You need to make sure that you have everyone on the same page about the goals of the program and what is needed to actually execute on that. Otherwise, you'll run into lots of hiccups and challenges along the way.
Right.
One department I think that is really key is actually getting sales to buy into the program, because without that, you're going to have a hard time really getting approval to reach out to people for the interviews and a hard time actually executing on the insights because a lot of the feedback is related to sales. And so what we have found in actually trying to secure as many interviews as possible and increase your schedule rate is not only is it essential to run the program to have sales engagement, but it's also essential to help you schedule the interviews. We ran some tests, and actually piping in the sales rep name into your emails can improve your schedule rate by 35%.
Wow.
And every step further that you go in increasing the engagement in the outreach process increases your participation rate. So, if you CC them, that helps. And then if you pipe their name in, that helps. And the best, most ideal situation is actually to have them reply to the emails they're CC'd on and reply in that thread and specifically and personally ask that buyer, hey, we would actually really love you to participate in this. And building off that personal relationship that they have with the team.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense because they've already got a relationship with the customer themselves, so it feels familiar and they're probably more likely to respond. Is there anything else that you've seen customers do to drive higher participation rates besides getting sales reps involved?
Yeah, there's a few things. So incentivization is really key. I think at first when people hear about that, they might shy away from it. They don't want to, bribe their buyers to participate or buy their feedback, but it's really not viewed that way at all. People want to be compensated for their time, and really it's a gesture of goodwill just to thank them for participating. And what we see is actually literally if you don't offer incentives, you'll see half the schedule rate of the people in the programs that do offer incentives. It goes a long way to your buyers, and the Clozd platform actually makes it really easy to offer incentives because we have 35 different currencies available and several different vendor options and donation options, so people can really find something that fits their needs and they feel comfortable doing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Another thing that we see really helps with participation rate is recency. So, think about time since the deal is closed until the time that you're actually reaching out to your buyers. You want to decrease that window as much as possible. We have found that 60 days is kind of the target mark. When you start going beyond 60 days, you see a 24% decrease in participation rate. And so the sooner you can reach out to these people, the better. Not only for them to be more willing to participate, but also for the quality of the feedback that you will get. Because the longer you wait, the less they'll remember, the more your product and your company will evolve and change, and the less relevant the feedback will be. So Sam, obviously the Clozd platform really helps with automation, obviously helping to close that gap so we can get a hold of the buyers faster after the deal is closed. Do you want to speak to how that works a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit it on the head when you talked about the speed to outreach with the participants and making sure that you're reaching out to them as quickly as possible after the deal closes. And in order to do that, or the best way to accomplish that, is just automating the process. If you think about reaching out to your customers, it's actually a very manual process. I can speak to this firsthand as a product manager. I'm always reaching out to our customers to get feedback. And you have to come up with a list of names of people you want to reach out to, make sure you have the right emails for them, make sure you get approval from the sales reps or the CSMs to reach out to them, actually send the emails, send follow-up emails to them, get them to schedule. All of those steps in the process take time and can fall through the cracks if you're doing it manually. And so automating each of those steps is super important. And that's why using a platform like Clozd is super valuable. I think the programs that have the most success scheduling a lot of interviews are the ones that connect their CRM and have an automation to import all of the deals that close right when they close. They use our tool that we call Workflows, which is a tool that allows you to segment all of the deals in your pipeline based on key criteria. Maybe it's by industry or by deal size. And then they automate outreach to those people. So they use our contributor portal, which is another tool that will reach out to the sales rep, check with them that the contact information is correct, the email's right, and get their approval to send to them. Once they get that approval, it automatically sends the first email out to the buyer, and we'll then continue to follow up with that using our sequence tool in the platform. And so when you have that sort of end-to-end process going, it happens more seamlessly. You reach out to the customers faster. Things don't fall through the crack. And you as the point of contact save time. You have more visibility, and ultimately you're just a lot more successful. Riley, that kind of brings me to my next question. You've gone through this painstaking process to schedule the interviews with your customers. Now you want to make sure that those interviews go really well and that you capture meaningful insights from them that can drive better win rates for your program. So how do you make sure that that happens in those interviews?
So one thing I would really make sure that you consider before you just start scheduling interviews is that you have your questions already lined up, that you're prepared for that call and not going into it blind. So you really need to sit down with your key stakeholders and decide what's really important for you to cover in these conversations. And also align with whoever's conducting the interview that it shouldn't be this like rigid phone survey. If you want to ask questions 1, 2, 3 in order, then why wouldn't you just send them a survey, right? The benefit of doing a live interview is that it's flexible and adaptable and conversational. Mm-hmm. And so if someone says, I just didn't move forward because you didn't have the integrations that I needed, don't just move on to the next question, dig into that. Ask, what integrations did you really need and why was that really important to your business? And that will be where you really start to uncover real value in these interviews. Making sure that you're covering all the key topics that are really important, just to make sure you cover all your bases. Everything from the origination of the deal to the actual product offering, their thoughts and feedback about your feature set, the sales process, your pricing, the competitors that they looked at, and opening it up too so that they can share whatever they think is really important for them. That will give you the most rich and broad feedback to cover all of your bases while diving into what's important to them.
Yeah, so that makes a ton of sense, Riley, that you have to prepare ahead of time to make sure that the interviews go well. It seems like a lot of work to actually go and conduct all of those interviews. Obviously, you can have a third party like Clozd do them for you, but how do you do that at scale for a large program?
Yeah, it's definitely a great question. And I think the key is really flex interviews. So those asynchronous interviews that Clozd offers where you can pre-record questions that are really key and important to you and still get qualitative rich feedback from your buyers without physically having to be on a call with them.
Yeah.
And so Clozd, like for our own win-loss analysis, we actually utilize flex interviews for a few different use cases. We do live interviews with our bigger deals that get farther in the pipeline, but we use flex interviews for smaller deal sizes or deals that didn't get very far in the sales process. We also utilize Flex for internal interviews. So we'll actually send a Flex interview to all our sales reps after the deal is closed to get their perspective on why the deal was won or lost. And we'll also send Flex interviews to our CSMs or our consultants to ask them about how implementation went a few months after the deal is closed to make sure the deal is off to a good start, and halfway through the contract, what we call a midpoint check-in, to see how the deal is looking so far and what their likelihood is to renew, and if there's anything we need to do in the next 6 months to help that client actually get to that point. And I know we have some really awesome features coming up for Flex interviews too, if you want to speak to those.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'm glad you mentioned Flex interviews. We launched those a little over a year and a half ago now, and we've seen a ton of success where it threads this needle between surveys where the feedback that you're getting isn't super robust or in-depth, but it's cheap, and live interviews where the feedback is super in-depth, but it's more expensive and a little less scalable. Flex interviews sit in the middle because they are asynchronous, they're cheaper, but you do tend to get more in-depth feedback because it feels like a conversation when the people are talking on screen, on video, and responding with their voice rather than typing into a text box. And so we want to take Flex interviews and take them a step further. One feature that we just launched that we're super excited about is our AI Flex follow-up questions, which basically allows us to inject AI into the Flex interview experience and ask key follow-up questions at certain moments in the interview that make sense. You mentioned earlier, for example, in a live interview, if they ask about integration, or if they mention something about integrations, well, you want to follow up and ask them, what integrations do you care about? And fortunately, AI can actually do a lot to interject those questions into the interview and make sure that you're getting more of the depth that you would see in live interviews, but still in the asynchronous Flex interview experience. So we're super excited about that.
Yeah, that's an awesome feature. And you know, through all these different channels, I feel like you're able to gather such robust feedback. And I'd be curious on your thoughts from a product perspective, how the Clozd platform really enables our clients to actually aggregate and digest those insights into really valuable, like, action items.
Yeah, that's a super great question. I think something people don't realize when they're going into win-loss analysis is how hard it is to analyze qualitative feedback at scale, right? You've conducted this interview that's really rich and has a ton of feedback in it, but then there's a very manual process after that where you have to go through the interview and summarize it, identify key themes that have come up, you know, what is the sentiment of the buyer throughout the interview, maybe pull out key quotes that you want to highlight that illustrate the themes that you've identified, and then you have to take all of that data and synthesize and aggregate it across a bunch of different interviews. And if you're doing that manually, it takes a lot of time, but it can also lead to a lot of inconsistencies when you've got sort of that human in the loop that, you know, maybe they read one interview differently than they read another interview. And so that's why it's so important to use a platform like Clozd to aggregate all of this win-loss feedback that you're getting. With a platform like Clozd, we've built in a ton of tooling so that you have this end-to-end process automated. Right when the interview is conducted, we can pull in the audio, create a really clean transcript, summarize the interview, identify the key themes, pull out quotes, and then aggregate that and synthesize it across all of those interviews. And that can drive the insights that you want for your program that will ultimately lead you to improving the win rates for your business.
Thanks for sharing all of that, Sam. You know, a question that I've heard a few times, I'm curious on your thoughts. Why not just upload all your transcripts to ChatGPT and have, you know, AI summarize it for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think a few things come to mind for me. The first is that we've done a ton of work to take all of the qualitative research expertise that our program managers and consultants have built up over years of doing this process manually, and really tried to take that expertise and inject it into the AI functionality that we have in the platform. And so a lot of the analysis it's doing is very specific to our industry, our vertical, and win-loss analysis especially. But even more than that, I think, is the value of having a platform that stitches the entire end-to-end process together, right? So going back to what we talked about earlier of automating the process of reaching out to all of your contacts and scheduling interviews, and then when those interviews get scheduled, pulling that transcript automatically, conducting all of the analysis and synthesizing it, and then having a central repository where everybody in your org can come to see those insights and consume them and learn about why you're winning and losing deals. is super valuable. Doing all of that with ChatGPT might be possible, but it requires stitching together dozens or even hundreds of individual tasks, which can be extremely time consuming.
Yeah, I mean, from personal experience, I have helped, put together a few of the prompts that we use to make the summary and pull the drivers and quotes in the platform. And it's a lot of work. So many iterations of a single prompt to get it just right and make sure that it's not hallucinating or, going off track.
Yeah.
So I definitely think there's a lot of value into using something that's just pre-built, ready for this use case and available to everyone to see.
Yeah.
So back to you, Sam. I'm curious, once we've gathered all these insights and we have everything in the Clozd platform, how does that actually then translate to change and action in your business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think if you don't take those insights and drive change in your organization, then it's all worth nothing, right? Ultimately, the goal of a win-loss program is to increase the win rates for your company. And it goes back to what you talked about earlier, which is driving cross-functional engagement and getting everybody at your business bought in and involved. And I think with our own Clozd for Clozd platform, the way that we've accomplished that is meeting people where they are with insights that are tailored specifically to their role. And so you think about all of the different cross-functional leaders that might want to consume this. For marketing leaders, we want to make sure that they understand how our brand is being perceived. For product leaders, we want to know, what products people like, what they don't like, what features they're requesting, et cetera, how that stacks up against competitors. For sales leaders, we want to know how our messaging is landing, how our sales reps are delivering, what our sales process looks like in action and in the field, right? And it's important for them to understand those things, but each of those leaders is busy. They have their own tools that they're using, their own processes that they're constantly running. And so again, meeting them where they are is super important. And I think using the Clozd platform can allow you to do that in an automated way again. One, you can use our notification system to send customized notifications that are specific to user personas directly from the platform, whether that's in Slack or in Teams, via email. We also have integrations with a few other tools that sales leaders might be using, where you can push win-loss insights to those tools. Beyond that, you can use our custom report building tool to build reports specific to different roles or personas, and then automate sending out those reports on a recurring scheduled basis so that they're constantly getting fresh insights from the platform. And I think that's how you can drive cross-functional engagement and really move the needle and see change happen in your organization.
Yeah, and just to add to that too, I think from an operations point of view, there's a lot of cool things that our clients are doing to talk about these insights and then actually drive that change. So a lot of our clients will have like monthly or quarterly meetings where they're meeting either as a leadership team or even as a whole company to talk about, this is what we're hearing from our customers, these are the findings, and this is what we're going to do about it. And of the things that we've already implemented, here's the improvement or the changes that we've seen, so they can really see the value and get that return on investment from everything that they're putting into this program. And another thing too is these quotes and these transcripts, like the actual words of the buyer, are extremely powerful. Just recently, I was trying to advocate for a new product feature, and I actually used quotes directly from the customers where they're explaining this pain point. And I feel like that really helped, everyone's like, wow, this is actually a problem. Like our buyers are actually saying this. It really drives home that point versus me just saying, oh, this is what the customers are feeling. This is what they're thinking. It's actually from their own mouth.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I remember exactly the feature that you're talking about, bringing it to the product team, and hearing those words not only brings it to life, but helps us design a solution that's more specific to their exact needs, right? Sometimes it can be ambiguous, when you just have a high level idea of what the pain point is, but when you have their words specifically, then we can go follow up there and dig in on how to improve our product and win more deals. Awesome. So we've talked about a lot of different things today across the entire win-loss journey. How would you summarize what great win-loss programs do to collect feedback from their customers?
I think at the end of the day, if you do not have buy-in across your organization for this program, it's going to fail. You need to not have it siloed just to product marketing or just to the single team. because these insights, they're valuable for the entire organization. You're getting feedback about the product, you're getting feedback about sales and pricing, and you need to get that feedback into the right hands so that it can drive action and change in your organization. And so I think at the end of the day, if we're taking one thing away from this conversation, it's the importance of getting on the same page with everyone and having a game plan of how you're going to execute the insights that you get from your buyers.
Yeah, I fully agree. If I were to add anything to that, I would say from the product perspective, making sure that you drive end-to-end automation for your win-loss program in order to save yourself time, but also to drive consistency in your program. So making sure that starting from a CRM integration all the way through workflows and automated outreach through to automated insight generation and notification and reporting, setting up that end-to-end process so that you're constantly sharing insights throughout your org and driving that change is super important to having a successful win-loss program.